Welcome to the Comic Sauce Podcast, where we talk comics and comics culture. I am Henry Liu, and today I'm joined by Christian Diadamo. Christian, how's it going?
Hey, hey, it's going well.
Excellent. I am also joined by Porfirio Rangel. Porfirio, how goes?
It's going good, Henry. Happy to be here.
Cool, cool. And welcome back. Oh, the dogs are barking even. Welcome back, Ranier. Ranier, how's it going?
Yeah, I've had better days, but I'm trying to keep a smile on my face. I've been in
Excellent.
hibernation.
Excellent. Excellent. Hanging in there. Good to hear. All right. So today is February 23rd, 2025, and we're hot off of the Captain America Brave New World theatrical release. We've all seen the movie, and today we're going to talk all about it. So, spoiler alert, we'll get into plot details, etc. So, you've been warned. So let's get right into it. The new Captain America movie. So maybe just start with general thoughts about what was your anticipation level going in, and maybe your general feel leaving the theater. Yeah. Um, let's start with Ranier. Ranier, what are your thoughts about this new Cap flick?
Ooh, so my general thoughts here are I liked it as a movie. Not so much sure I liked it as a Captain America or an MCU movie.
Mm-hmm. All right. Fair enough. I immediately know what you're getting at there. I have a similar sentiment. But let's move on here. Porfirio, what are your thoughts?
I guess going into the movie, I didn't have like so much excitement or any level, I think I was just like, okay, it's gonna be interesting to see how Marvel Studios sets up Sam Wilson as the new Captain America in this new like MCU phase. Um, and then, I came out of the movie thinking it was fun. It was a fun movie, and I'll leave it at that for now.
All right. How about you, Christian?
All right. Yeah, I think I felt a bit similar to Porfirio going into it. Um, this wasn't like the big one I was really looking forward to this year in terms of MCU movies. Um, but it's an MCU movie, so you're gonna have a fun time regardless. And the trailer looked cool. I was excited to see what they were gonna do with Harrison Ford and all that. Um, but I would say my coming out of it, I think um my feelings are actually maybe a little opposite of say Rainier, where I kind of liked where it kind of fits in with the MCU as an MCU project, but as a movie, I was kind of a little meh on it.
Got it. Okay, so my quick take. Um, yeah, this one I was anticipating quite a bit. One of my most anticipated of the year. Um, I was pretty hyped. I watched the previous three Captain America movies in preparation, and you guys know I love those movies and really enjoyed revisiting them. And I was thoroughly pumped going in for this one. And um, yeah, I did enjoy it. Like it sounds like a lot of us did. But leaving the theater, I can't help but feel there was a little bit of disappointment there. I think the quality level was perhaps not up to par, not what I was expecting so much, yeah. So let's get into it. Um, yeah, so as we were getting ready to go, so myself, Christian, and Porfirio did see this one together, and in our text chains, we were referring to it as Cap 4. We're like, oh, let's get Cap 4 tickets. You guys ready for Cap 4? And we kept referring to it as Captain America 4, right? Um, which is I think it's worth talking about that right away because there aren't many part fours in the MCU, right? I think it's really just Avengers, Thor, and Cap to this point, right? Um, and Thor 4, Love and Thunder was really a follow-up to Thor 1, 2, and 3, right? Um, and Avengers Endgame, Avengers 4 was totally a follow-up to Avengers 3, right? But to call this one Captain America 4 is like we shouldn't have been doing that, I think, because it really had nothing to do with the Chris Evans Captain America movies, right? Um, so what was this movie exactly? Was it a sequel? Was it standalone? Was it a follow-up to the Falcon and Winter Soldier TV show? Was it The Incredible Hulk Part 2? What was this movie exactly? Like, how would you categorize this one? Any thoughts, general thoughts? Christian, you want to throw your 2 cents out there?
Yeah, like, yeah, it is hard to say this is really like a follow-up to Captain America 3. Um,
Yeah,
I guess you could say it's just something with the MCU, I guess, as a whole, because, as much as I love the Captain America trilogy, there's so much of what Steve Rogers does in, like, say, the Avengers movies that ties into the Captain America movies, and I think when we were talking about Cap 3, we were like, "Oh, this doesn't feel like a Captain America movie. This is more like Avengers 2.5."
yeah,
And so, like, I feel like the Captain America the movies, I guess, all of them are so like heavily tied into the overarching plot line of like the MCU and Shield and the Avengers. And that there's part of me that kind of see, okay, well, it doesn't feel like it really ties into the previous movies. In fact, I liked what you said about Incredible Hulk 2 because it ties in a lot to that movie.
yeah,
It's almost like this movie is just like this makes it sound way more generic, but it feels like the next chapter of the MCU. It feels like the MCU uh in phase 5, the big setup for, you know, Doomsday. There's a setup for Doomsday and like, oh yeah, we have to bring back the Avengers and like we're going to tie into these other MCU projects, Incredible Hulk and Eternals, and like kind of follow those up. So it's doing kind of a lot at once. So I almost want to call it like just MCU featuring Captain America, you know?
yeah, yeah. That's a good take because with the Marvel Studios movies, they're not traditional sequels, right? Like they're sequels of all past MCU movies, right? So you shouldn't really look at like, oh, the Iron Man trilogy or the Captain America trilogy. It's not like that, right? Um, although I will say that the more I think about it, like this movie, Captain America: Brave New World, is most like a sequel to the Falcon and Winter Soldier TV show more than anything, I think. Like it doesn't really have anything to do with the Chris Evans Captain America movies so much. Yes, it has a lot of DNA with the Incredible Hulk movie. There's a little bit of Eternals sprinkled in there, but it really, to me, it seems like a follow-up to the Falcon and Winter Soldier TV show. So that's how I might categorize it. And in retrospect, that should have been my prep. I think not watching the Chris Evans movies, but rather that show. Anyhow, any random thoughts about the title of the movie?
Yeah, I agree with you on this feels like a sequel to The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Because it very much just ties into the way that series ended in terms of like the visual continuity of it.
Yeah,
Um, and yeah, like the name of the movie just feels like it does feel kind of off because, as you said, we're expecting. You watched, Captain America 1 and 2 and 3. thinking that this is going to lead into that.
Yeah,
It doesn't.
it doesn't at all. Agreed.
It-
Yeah. Yeah,
and
it's a
it's
yeah, go ahead.
oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's a bit of a pitfall. Like they name it Captain America as a marketing tool, but it almost sets you up for disappointment because it has very little to do with those movies, and quality wise it differs also, which we can get into later. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's a bit of a pitfall.
When they were promoting the movie, I remember them saying that this is going to be a different MCU film. It's going to be more of a spy thriller type film, which was immediately to me was a callback to Winter Soldier. I'm like, oh, okay, they're going to bring it. They're going to bring Captain America back to that tone and tempo,
Hmm.
which I think they did. I think they did a good job of that part. Um, but just how it ties in and like being touted as the fourth Captain America movie, a little bit of a misdirection there.
Right on. Okay, so let's talk about the comparison a bit. We have been talking about the past Cap movies, and yeah, clearly they were marketing it as being a Winter Soldier-esque type movie. Like the trailers were kind of in that vein. Um, and I mean, there were hints of it, but it to me it didn't feel like any of those past Cap movies. Yeah. Um, so maybe what I'm driving at is that what the past Cap flicks did really well, particularly 2 and 3, Winter Soldier and Civil War, is addressed real life issues, right? So Winter Soldier gets into a lot of like user data stuff, privacy issues, with Project Insight and all that, right? And then with Civil War, there's the whole Sokovia Accords thing, right? And it sort of paralleled like the abuse of power with um, uh, authority figures like the police, etc., and all that. Yeah. So these movies are completely fictional and have um, super powered individuals. But what's great about the past Cat movies is that they did tie in with real life things, and they had like important things to say, social commentary and all that sort of thing, right? Um, and so with this one, I feel like we were sort of set up to think, okay, um, maybe this will continue that legacy. It had a character in it that is the U.S. president, right? So it was really setting it up for audiences to think there was going to be like this hard-hitting, gritty realism, social commentary type stuff. Um, I mean, personally, I think it really shied away from any of that. Um, but yeah, what do you guys just feel about like the movie on that level, like in relating to like real life issues and stuff that past Cat movies have touched upon? How do you think this one dealt with those sort of things? Porfirio, any thoughts there?
Yeah, sure. I think like it just played it way too safe. I think with just um the whole like political climate right now in the US, I just think that Marvel was just trying to please both parties and not say like, oh, this is how Democrats or Republicans act, like I think it, like you said, Henry, I think it kind of hinted with Harrison Ford. I felt like Harrison Ford's character Ross was kind of like a soft touch of Trump, of just like trying to get his way and everything.
Hmm.
And then like when he doesn't, he becomes like a Hulk, you know? Um, but it wasn't really obvious, like you said, like how the Sokovia Accords or the government privacy was in Winter Soldier. It was more like underneath the shadows or something. Again, I just think that there was just this writing of just playing it safe and not being too political, which was, yeah, just kind of throws off the vibe of what like the what you expect from Captain America movies.
Yeah, good take. Yeah, I think with the way they played it here, and I do agree that the movie plays it safe. They avoid offending people, but at the same time, the movie kind of loses its edge, right? It doesn't really tie into real life stuff as well as past Cap movies did, yeah. Um, so I don't think I'm alone there where I feel like, yeah, it does play it safe, maybe too safe. Yeah. Christian, any
Yeah.
thoughts in this vein?
I definitely agree, and unfortunately, I feel like the pieces are there to have for like a much bigger message, a lot more edge, and like to really say something political. Like you have, the president, of course, turning into the giant red monster and destroying the White House. You have There is an Israeli character in the movie. Of course, you have Captain America himself. A new Captain America who's black, and like in Falcon and Winter Soldier, you see he's really like an everyman who's trying to take care of his family, but in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, he's trying to get a loan, but he can't. And even though he's fought Thanos, and like is this symbol of the country, and like he's not really sure what that symbol means anymore. Like, um, you have all these like little pieces here to set up for something big, but unfortunately, it doesn't really, yeah, it feels like they played it so safe that they don't do enough with those pieces.
Yeah. Yeah, well said. Yeah, part of my anticipation level was that not only would I see an entertaining movie, but it would address a lot of what's going on in real life. You know, we're all dealing with a very divided country and just a lot of unhappy people. And, I was hoping Marvel could sort of like just make me feel better about everything by entertaining and sort of like helping me process a lot of that. But this movie is not that. It doesn't do that. Don't go in for that. Um, yeah. So, so I might mention that um, the main villain of this movie is the leader, right? Um, so that was interesting because it is the same actor as played him in Incredible Hulk, Tim Blake Nelson, and yeah. So I mean, I think this is a good example of where this movie does stray from the past Captain America movies, where villains like Alexander Pierce in Cap 2 and Baron Zemo in Cap 3 are really grounded villains, and you kind of understand their motivations, and they're just like real life people. They have no superpowers. Um, this villain is almost like a 90s superhero movie villain, right? He's like, he looks all green. It looks pretty terrible, to be honest. Looks like a bad cosplay. But he's like he's just like he does mind control, right? And he takes over the minds of different people throughout the movie, and it's very not grounded in reality, and it is very much like an old school like comic book type story, right? um yeah, what do we think about this character? Ranier, seems like you have some thoughts here.
Oh yeah. I think I might have thought about this immediately after the movie about how he can control people, like he
Yeah.
can mind control. And I think that's where some of this kind of falls apart is because he could have mind controlled the president the way he wanted to have done so.
Right.
Um, from where it is, but like, I mean, I think it's cool that they tied back in, like the story of Ed Norton's Hulk. Um, I feel like that might have been a big piece where they were just like, we have to tie this together so we can get the wider MCU,
Hmm.
in here. But yeah, as a villain, I don't know. Not my favorite.
Well said. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Christian.
Oh, I think, yeah. I guess to add on to that, I did notice, like, thinking like on it for a day. It's like, oh, his plot was pretty similar to Baron Zemo in Cap 3, where at the end he reveals that, oh, turns out my entire plot was to discredit the Avengers. I really wanted to ruin the reputation of them. Uh, and in this movie, the leader's big thing was, oh, well, I really want to discredit Ross, President Ross. I really
Hmm.
wanted to ruin his reputation and
Yep.
show them that they're not, as good as they really are. And then, but I think what kind of separates the two is that, like, you could see Baron Zemo's kind of almost on this, like, suicide mission, you
Hmm.
know? Like, he
Yeah.
doesn't really care what happens to him. He just wants to, like, he just wants to do this and that's it. Like, and then he's out. And I think when he finally meets Black Panther at the end of the movie, it's almost like he's, like, kind of ready for Black Panther to kill him.
Yep.
Like, he's ready to die. Um, but in this movie, he kind of shows up to Captain America, or not. The leader shows up to Captain America, and reveals his master plan that he just wants to discredit Thunderbolt Ross.
Yeah.
But you kind of wonder, like, it didn't really feel like the kind of, like, suicide mission type of feel. It just feels like he's like this, like, evil mastermind,
Yep.
and you kind of wonder, why did he show up and, like, get himself caught at the end to go to the raft when he could have, when, like, the way he talked to Thunderbolt Ross was through these loudspeakers, and you're like, well, couldn't you have done that anywhere?
He's a super genius, right? You'd think he would have thought about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
If he's that smart, you would think. Okay. Hey, speaking of villains, so I was surprised that Tim Blake Nelson was the main villain of this movie because I was kind of thinking, okay, it's either Harrison Ford or Giancarlo Esposito, two legendary actors, right? Harrison Ford does have a lot of screen time, and he is certainly a villain of the movie, and is a kind of a complex character. But let's talk about Giancarlo Esposito for a second, because for an actor of this caliber to be in this movie and to do close to nothing was shocking. So I don't know how much there's to say about it, but he is in the movie very little and is of minimal consequence in this one. Yeah, any thoughts about Giancarlo in this one?
It was a waste.
Yeah,
I feel like they're gonna set him up for something bigger. But yeah, to Porfirio's point, it was a bit of a waste.
right.
Yeah, I wonder if, because this movie did have, like, a lot of rewrites and reshoots, so I kind of wonder if there was a version of this movie where he was the main villain, and, like, they spent all this money
Mm,
and, like, but over time they, like, kept rewriting the movie, and they were like, oh crap, we really don't have, like, much for him anymore. Okay, well, what if we just have him be this, like, henchman for, like, a second act fight or something? And they kind
hmm.
of ended up just
Yeah,
going with that when I wonder if originally they had a much bigger part for him,
yeah.
because he could
And
be
they
the
must
main
have.
villain. Like, he
Hmm.
does, like, kind of chew up the scenery when he's there.
Yeah.
He's a
I
lot of
do
fun to
agree.
watch. So,
Yeah, I agree with Christian. I think like, because the organization that he runs is called the Serpent Society, and then I
Hmm.
think I read somewhere that like two big castings, two big characters of that organization were cut off from the film. There was two characters named Diamondback and Copperhead. Um,
Hmm.
and they were after the reshoots, yeah, their characters were completely cut off from the final version. So yeah, I think his character had some kind of larger role within this film, and it just ultimately got cut off.
It certainly seems that way. Yeah, it's funny. Ranier, you and I went to Hall H at San Diego Comic-Con last summer, and they did have a panel for this movie, and Giancarlo Esposito was there. And part of a lot of the excitement in the Marvel Studios panels was like character reveals, right? The Robert Downey Jr. one was obviously the big one. But if you remember, Giancarlo Esposito officially revealed the character he was playing in this movie, right? And he's like, I will be the Sidewinder. And then the audience was kind of like, huh? But we everyone clapped because it's him, right? But there was kind of this collective like, okay, that's cool, yay, kind of thing. And then sure enough, like he doesn't really do much at all. So yeah, you really do wonder like what happened and what could have been. But as it is, like if you're a fan of this actor, like so many of us are, this isn't the movie to go see. Like you don't go see this movie to see him. Let's just put it that way. He's in it very little. Okay. So we talked about leader, we talked about Sidewinder. How about Thunderbolt Ross, played by none other than Harrison Ford? Um, I mean, huge recasting, previously played by William Hurt in a number of MCU movies. Harrison Ford takes over the role of Thaddeus Ross. How do we feel about his performance here? Anyone?
I'll start. Yeah,
Okay.
I dug Harrison Ford. Um, he's Harrison Ford. What else can you really say? I It's a lot of fun to watch. I think the big Hulk fight at the end, of course, I think is the real highlight of the movie. And I think he does follow up William Hurt pretty well. It's too bad we can't see William Hurt in this role and as the Red Hulk. Rest in peace. But for I think what they had to work with, I think I quite enjoyed Harrison Ford.
Yeah, I did too. I mean, Harrison Ford has been our president before, so I don't think it's a far stretch. Air
Hey, there you
Force
go.
One. Um, I mean, everyone loves Harrison Ford, so it doesn't feel like, oh, why did they cast him? Or I can't see him playing that role. Um, and he took it as his own. I thought he did a good job of that. It seemed as seamless to me for him to take over the role as it would have been for what's his name playing Rhodey.
Oh, Don
Uh,
Cheadle.
yeah, I mean, like clearly different, right? But like it transitioned well. I think Harrison Ford did just that.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I thought he was good. Yeah, I liked you mentioned Rainier. He's played president before. There was a little nod to that where he's wearing a jacket that said Air Force One on
Air
it.
Force One, yeah.
That was fun. And yeah, it was a meaty role. Like he was very conflicted. Um, it wasn't like kind of like what we are saying about the leader character being this very like one-dimensional, old school supervillain type character. Like the Ross character, I think, was layered and was complex. And yeah, Harrison Ford was good in the role. And yeah, like I think like he wouldn't have taken the role if there wasn't much to it. But yeah, there was some meat to this role, and he got to do his thing. So I thought he was effective. Okay, so we talked about the villains. Why don't we talk about the heroes of the movie a bit? Yeah. Um, so along with a new Captain America, there's also a new Falcon, right? Joaquin Torres. And I know Porfirio is a big fan of this character. How do you think he did in his movie debut?
I mean, I love the dude. He was really funny. Um he kind of plays like that kind of like Chris Evans, Anthony, like kind of chemistry they had of just like being like
Hmm.
a good comedic duo. Um and I guess yeah, like similar to also like Iron Man 1, Robert Downey Jr. and Terrence's character of just like taking up that mantle. Like there is that sense of like uh, Joaquin just being like, "Oh, can I put on the wings?" And then Sam just being like, "Oh, okay, sure," you know. So there was definitely some funny comedic elements in there. I was low-key kind of worried whether or not they were going to make him like a character comic accurate accurate
Hmm.
thing, because in the comics he actually looks like a falcon, so that's not appealing to the eye. Um, and at the end, because he's doing all these like medical procedures and everything, I was like, oh shit, is this where they're gonna like like experiment on some kind of like experimental serum on him to make him feel better, and then that's gonna make his body transform or whatever? But that didn't seem to happen, so that was cool.
Hmm.
But it'll be exciting to see how his character plays in the rest of the MCU, because I know like his character does later on join the Champions, and I know they're low-key kind of hinting at some kind of like Champions Young Avengers kind of team assemble in the MCU, so it's gonna be interesting to see if he falls in that line or just continue being Sam Wilson's new Falcon in this next phase.
Right on. So with the new Falcon, there's of course a new Captain America, played by Anthony Mackie. Um, yeah, quick thought on Anthony Mackie. I love Anthony Mackie. He's a great actor, and he's brought so much to the table throughout the years with this character, with the Sam Wilson character. Um, Perhaps debatable, but one could say that he is better as a side character than a main character, and I kind of feel this way, perhaps. Um,
I think I know why. I'll
well,
keep going.
okay, well, I was gonna say that Anthony Mackie is a great comedic actor. He's funny. He's just naturally funny. He's a funny guy. And he really got to use a lot of that in the past Captain America movies, in the past Avengers movies. Um, and he kind of had to tone that down here. Like Porfirio was alluding to, the Joaquin Torres character got to do more of the comedic stuff, right? And as a new Cap, um, Sam Wilson is more of the straight man, the serious character, yeah. So yeah, it pains me to say it, but I think that Sam Wilson is better suited as a side character than a main character. Um, I kind of look at it similar to Doctor Strange and Ant-Man, where those characters are great as side characters, but not as good as main characters in their own movies. Um, yeah. Any thoughts on that?
Wait, sorry. So you're saying that you didn't think Doctor Strange and Ant-Man were great main characters in their own movies? That's how you felt about that?
Yeah, I feel like I feel
Oh,
all
wow.
three. Yeah, Stephen Strange, Sam Wilson, Scott Lang are all more effective as side characters than main characters.
Ooh, I don't think I'm on the same page with Ant-Man and Doctor Strange.
Okay.
But like back
The
to your thing about Sam Wilson being like the main character. I think what I struggled with was he was introduced as kind of a sidekick. Like he doesn't have, as far as I know, in the MCU, an origin story. Like we don't see the struggle of where he was and and then when he became Falcon, it's like he suddenly just shows up with wings, you know. Um,
Yeah.
like there's really no explanation. I thought the coolest part of the Falcon and Winter Soldier was Sam Wilson's struggle with, taking on the shield and being Captain America. I thought that was actually quite compelling. He was like, I don't deserve it. I don't want to be it. I thought that struggle was really cool. Um, but I think the reason why it's hard to see him as the main character is because I don't know if he's had really a proper like origin story explanation.
Oh, that's an interesting take. Yeah, it's true. It's true. He showed up with his wings, and there was not much backstory there. Um, any other random thoughts about the new Cap, about the new Falcon? Any of our heroes here? Christian, any thoughts?
Um, yeah. We'll say like I didn't really think about it, but yeah, Rainier, now that you mentioned that, it's like, oh yeah, you're kind of right. Um, I think like one thing I will say I did like about Sam Wilson as Cap is I dig his fighting style. I think that he doesn't have the super soldier serum, of course, so he has to get a bit more creative with his tech and has to use his tech in order to fight. And I think that like they were doing some cool things with it, and they kind of did play to more of that kind of strength. He has the Wakandan tech that absorbs the energy and then like kind of fires it back. And he has of course he's the wings, and he even like uses the wings as like these like attacks, which I think is cool. And I think he's able to do like all this kind of cool stuff. He's able to fly, of course. And I did enjoy the fight scene with the planes where he's trying to get the people out of the planes
Hmm.
in like the middle of the movie. And so I do think that like, oh wow, they kind of knew how he works in an action scene very well, even if it felt like some of the writing felt a bit flat for him.
Got it. Okay. So moving on, there was some controversy when this movie was released. Um, some of it might be considered clickbait, artificial hype, you might say, but I don't know. Maybe we can talk through it a little bit. Um, in my mind, there were two things here. One was some comments that Anthony Mackie said, and basically being read as anti-America comments. And the other thing uh, to note is the Ruth Bat Saraf character, right? The Israeli agent. Um, her presence in this movie sparked um, some feelings and thoughts about what's going on in Israel and Palestine, right? Um, any thoughts in this vein? We've been talking about how the movie does play it safe, but the movie wasn't free of controversy. I mean, there were a lot of headlines addressing these issues.
What was the comment that Anthony Mackie made? I may have missed that.
Yeah, do you know, Porfirio? I don't have the exact quote on me.
He said something along the lines that Captain America does not represent America.
Oh,
Right. And it was taken out of context a bit. It was, specific words from like a few sentences he said about it, right?
yeah. What
And
was the context of that?
I think if I remember correctly, he wanted to just say that like Captain America is like a person that could be anybody that fights for what they think is right. That Captain America doesn't fight for what America thinks it's right. Because then he started to like give like examples like if you look at Captain America 2 or 3, like Chris Evans' Captain America fights against the government. He fights against Alexander in Winter Soldier, and he fights against the Soviet courts and Ross in Civil War. So his ideas were just like, oh, Captain America just represents anyone who wants to just continue fighting what they believe in. And so, of course, people twisted his words and said that Anthony was being anti-patriotic and was destroying the legacy of Captain America.
As the internet does.
Yeah.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah. I'm glad you
It sounds
didn't.
like it sounds like the audience is like, yeah, like you said, Porfirio, sort of twisting his words, and it's becoming like a line of its own.
Hmm.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean that whole thing does seem to be kind of artificial controversy, like controversial stuff that really wasn't controversial, but it was sort of twisted to make it seem like it, perhaps. Um, maybe
And
the
then the
more
controversy. Oh,
go ahead.
sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead,
The
Ranier.
other character, the Israeli character, is
Yeah,
that?
let's talk about her. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually didn't even think about that as well. I was actually kind of wondering what her character is. Her character somebody in Marvel? Like, is there something I'm missing?
Yeah, yeah. So I
Okay.
can talk about that a little bit. Um, so the actress Shira Haas plays Ruth Bat-Saraf in the movie, and this character Ruth is a Marvel superhero named Sabra, who is Israeli and is former Mossad. So ripe for controversy. I think even the comic book character has been controversial in the past. So just the presence of this character in this movie had drummed up some controversial feelings. Um, but as we've been saying, the movie does play it safe. And I think they really toned down this character a lot. So instead of being ex-Mossad, they made her ex-Red Room, an ex-widow. Yeah. And there was no indication that she has ties to the Israeli government at all. They do mention she is from Israel. She is Israeli, but that's it. So they did play it safe. But you know, like a lot of the stuff with this movie, they played it safe, but still got bit with this controversy, right? Um, so at the end of the day, how do we feel about this character? Porfirio, seems like you have some thoughts there.
I mean, I don't know what Marvel's thinking was to like casting this character. They already knew like the character already has like some controversial history, and with like the whole political climate again with today and what's happening in Gaza, it just for me it just seemed like, okay, why are you guys doing this? And then you could just kind of really tell during the film that they wanted to keep the character, but they just kept her background like kind of secretive or really downplayed it, or so it just again, it just kind of opens up the question to like why introduce this character, why have this, why do that, it just made like if you take her out of the movie, I don't think the movie would have any less impact if she weren't in it. So I don't know, it just seems like why? That's the question I'm having here.
I'm on the same page. Yeah, I was kind of curious, like, what is she doing here?
Right. Yeah, I mean, it might speak to how it was a troubled production, right? I think there were a lot of reshoots involved, rewrites, and just like it was kind of patched together in the end. We were talking about like what happened to Giancarlo Esposito. The same could be said about this character, I think, where she was probably in the movie too much to have her taken out entirely. Um, but they wanted to steer clear of controversy, so they minimized the character. So that's how I read it. I mean, I thought the actress was decent. She looked different and was a different kind of character than we're used to seeing in Marvel. So I thought that was kind of cool. But yeah, ultimately it was kind of like, okay, what is she doing here exactly? You know? Um, so yeah, like a lot of the stuff we've been saying, it's a bit of a head scratcher. Yeah. All right. So, what else? Those are my main points there. I guess we can get to ratings and general thoughts. Maybe general thoughts first. Just general thoughts about the movie. Anything you want to get off your chest about anything we haven't talked about yet? Christian, anything?
Yeah, I got something. So I think another movie I could have liked that this tied back into was Eternals. They finally talked about the giant head in the ocean, and I kind of like that it was like kind of this political piece that all these nations are fighting over because they are fighting over adamantium. Adamantium is now in the MCU. And that's like kind of the like the new item, this indestructible ore stronger than vibranium that nations are being fought over. So, what do you guys feel? How do you guys feel about adamantium being finally introduced?
I mean, obviously, it's a call to Wolverine, right? Which
Oh
got me
yeah,
thinking, like, wait a
Mm-hmm.
minute, Wolverine's been around for a long time, and adamantium just showed up. So, are we going to see a young Wolverine? Like, what are
Mm.
they going to do with Logan? I also thought that there would have been some sort of like call out to Project X, but I don't think that happened.
I don't think so either.
I think it would have been too much, but it would have been maybe kind of cool if there was a mention of something. And like let's see, because President Ross there was a lot of conflict between him and the president of Japan. And I thought
Mm-hmm.
they were going to tie something there with like some sort of Weapon X call out, but maybe they got cut in the reshoots. Who knows?
Yeah, it's funny. The title Brave New World, it kind of drums up these thoughts of what we were expecting, like spy espionage or like this gritty take on the current state of our country. But in the end, Brave New World is in reference to adamantium. Like that's when they use the term Brave New World in the movie, right? It's in reference to adamantium. So it has nothing to do with any of that. And instead it's just a kind of a fan service Marvel Comics reference, right? Um and yeah, I was wondering if there would be any kind of mutant reference in this movie, and there really wasn't. So yeah, kind of just a fan service sort of thing. It's like, oh, they mentioned adamantium, but there was not a lot of consequence other than just that term, right? I'm sure there will be more adamantium talk in the future, but as it is, it didn't really play heavily in this movie, right? Any other
Can we
thoughts?
can we talk about that post-credit scene?
Yeah. Yep, there was one. Let's talk about it. Wait, what
There,
what was it?
Remind me of it. I actually forgot
Yeah,
about it.
yeah, tell us what it was for.
it was they were Sam Wilson arrived at the raft. That's what it's called, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
The raft, and he confronts what's the villain's name?
The
Oh,
The
leader.
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 The leader?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Wait, what's his name? I forget his name.
Yeah,
Oh,
see, that's how
yeah.
forgettable he is.
Samuel Stearns.
Samuel
Sam,
Stearns.
Yeah.
Okay. And then Samuel's like, "Oh, um, like yeah, you like saved this world, but what happens when other worlds come, whatever." And so he's talking about like the multiverse, you know? And I just felt like that was like Okay, what's new? Nothing. You
Right.
know, I feel like,
Yeah.
when you come to a Marvel movie, you expect the post-credit scene to get you hyped for the next Marvel movie, or like be like, okay, this is what I'm looking forward to. And they gave nothing new away. It's like you're like 5 steps behind if this is your first introduction to the multiverse, or even
Hmm.
like 20 movies behind if this is your first like step to like other worlds. Thanos already was introduced in Avengers 1, in the post-credit scene. So this is like nothing about this post-credit scene made sense, and nothing about it was anything new. It was just like, why?
Let it out, Porfirio, let it out. I'm with you though. I'm with you. Like, so it's interesting. The way you read it was multiverse. So maybe like an alternate universe. Tony Stark as Doctor Doom reference, possibly. I kind of read it as a cosmic thing, like when they mentioned other worlds, like another planet. I thought it was like a Galactus reference for Fantastic Four. Um, it could be read in a number of ways. But whatever the case is, what you're saying is exactly true. If it's a multiverse reference, a cosmic reference, whatever, we've been there. Like it's not shocking. We've seen Avengers Infinity War and Endgame, and there's like so much shit in there about time travel and different universes. We've seen the multiverse in other movies. We've seen a lot of cosmic stuff. This is not shocking. And they didn't explicitly state anything. They didn't name check Doctor Doom or Galactus or anything. So it was, yeah, kind of a dud of a post-credits scene.
Yeah, this one feels a bit like it's like, oh, well, it's a Marvel movie. We have to put it in, but we're not really sure
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
or when this movie's going to come out
Right.
or where the next, like it's like it feels like another casualty of all the reshoots and rewrites
Yeah.
that they didn't have a concrete idea of where this is going to fit.
Yeah.
So they thought, well, we'll just do like a generic thing. But it is too bad if they were going to do something that doesn't tie in. They could have a funny moment or something with the new Falcon, or
Hmm.
Bucky, you know,
Yeah.
or someone with a side character. So it does feel like they chose like kind of the laziest option, laziest, like most generic version of a post credit scene
Yeah.
they could have done.
Yeah. It was like a teaser for something that they didn't know what they were teasing. It's very confusing, baffling. Okay. So let's move on to ratings. Let's
Wait,
rate. Oh,
Henry,
hold on.
I have
Porfirio,
one
go
more
ahead.
I have one more thought. Can we talk about I guess because we talked about what kind of movie Cap 4 or Captain America Brave New World is, like
Hmm.
the reintroduction of Betsy Ross.
Yes, or Betty Ross.
Oh,
Yes.
Betty. I just, again, like it just feels like, what kind of movie are we watching? Are we watching Cap 4? Are we watching Incredible Hulk 2? And I feel like the reintroduction of her was supposed to be some kind of like big deal to have it connect to Incredible Hulk, but I think it had the energy and impact that nobody cared.
Hey, by the way, did you guys get like an AI feel when Liv Tyler was on
Yeah,
screen?
A little bit,
Because
yeah.
I
I was
did.
telling my wife, I was like, if they had Liv Tyler on set, they wouldn't show her from that far away. They'd get close-ups. And we kind of saw her like sort of in the shadow behind a
Hmm.
bar. And I'm like,
Mm.
is she even really there? Like, did they just AI generate her face?
Possibly.
It really looked like that. Yeah, there's something like uncanny about it.
Yeah,
I do have a couple thoughts too.
go for it.
I so again, going back to like, my point about like Sam's never really had an origin story. That's why it was hard to really buy in um, to him being like the Captain America movie. The Captain America movie I wanted to see us with Sam Wilson was Sam Wilson really just taking ownership of Captain America. Like really stepping into the shoes and leaning more into being the character, like as you know, the mantle had been passed. But I feel like I never really got a sense of that. Again, they kind of alluded to a lot of that, primarily in The Falcon and Winter Soldier. It would have been cool to have seen more of that here. But I think what they were trying to go for, like, I think they just wanted to dive into Captain America, right? And I think maybe this movie might be the test of like, well, you know, we no longer have an Iron Man. We no longer, I mean, like the real actors that are coming into these stories. Like, I'm wondering if they're using this movie as like a test to see how the audience would just take a completely new actor picking up, you know, a legacy like hero. I mean, we know like Riri Williams is going to be coming into the MCU, and I'm wondering if they're looking at this movie as like, can the audience buy the mantle being handed to, you know, a new actor? And then another thing too that I think they, I feel like the one thing they did a good job was not like relying too heavily on like past MCU heroes showing up as like cameos. Like I'm sure as cool as it would have been to have seen someone show their face that you wouldn't have expected to be in there. I mean, we got Bucky. Um, we did get what was the original Captain America?
Oh, Isaiah Bradley.
Isaiah Bradley. We did get
Hmm.
Isaiah Bradley. But I'm glad they kept that to a minimum because I think it would have been less impactful if they had some other Avengers show up and suddenly it's no longer, you know, Sam Wilson's movie. Um, that's it.
Right on. Yeah. Just quick thought. Like with the reappearance of Betty Ross, played by Liv Tyler, like it's just classic Kevin Feige, right? He loves to bring back old characters, bring back old actors. Um, it's like if there's if there are questions from the fans about like, oh, why did this happen or what happened to this character, this and that, he loves to like prove them wrong and like years later like they show up somewhere, right? So it's almost like the appearance of like the celestial head in the ocean and the appearance of Liv Tyler. It's almost like, hey, you know, this is what I do. Like I bring it back. It's a connected universe, everybody. So like for that reason, I think like somewhere down the line, Ruth and Sidewinder are gonna be back somewhere, right? Because people like us are complaining like they didn't do anything in this movie. What the hell? They'll probably be back in something in the future, just so Kevin Feige said, like, see, I told you, it's all connected, right? So there's that. It's the MCU. Okay. So yeah, why don't we get to our ratings now? So on a scale of 1 to 5, what would you rate Captain America Brave New World? 1 being worst, 5 being best. Any volunteers to kick it off here?
I'll start.
All right.
So I'm feeling a 2 out of 5 for this movie. I think that the plot is super messy. It doesn't feel like it truly says anything like really impactful with with all of its kind of political pieces, and it doesn't quite hit the same notes as the previous Captain America movies. And the villains do feel like a bit wasted. Um, Whereas, but I think you get some cool fight scenes. I really like the Red Hulk fight. Harrison Ford was great, and I won't say I disliked this movie. And I think there's kind of enough going for it to where I still had a good time watching it. Um, but I unfortunately I think this was a little bit too messy. So I'm feeling 2 out of 5.
Right on. Um, who wants to go next? Porfirio, you want to go next?
Sure. Um, Same like Christian, I think I give this 2 out of 5. I think that this movie had a lot going on that it didn't know what it wanted to do. There was a lot of villains, there was a lot of characters, a lot of callbacks to other MCU projects. But the action scenes are hella cool. They were a lot of fun. And that's just it. I think this movie was a great fun movie. I feel like if you like the MCU and you kind of want to see like what's happening in the next chapter for Sam Wilson, to go check this out in theaters. And if you're not a constant Marvel viewer like all of us, I think maybe you could wait till it comes on streaming. Um, but it was cool. So 2 out of 5.
All right. Ranier, how about you?
Yeah, I'm going to join the number two bandwagon here. I feel like the elements of the movie was fun, but I just feel like those same elements, like just the way that they were put together and the way it was directed, I think is where it really fell short. I'm pretty sure the reshoots is primarily responsible for a lot of that. But I'm rooting for Sam Wilson. Like I want to see him as Captain America. I just want them to present to us Sam Wilson as Captain America in a better way.
Got it. Got it. All right. So I'm glad I'm going last because I like to end on a high note. And I'm not giving this a high rating, but I am going to give it a 3, a recommendation. It's barely a 3, though. I will say that. And I will also say that I completely understand you guys giving this one a 2. It is very messy, as Christian was saying. It's not a very well-made movie. It is a mess, and it's kind of all over the place. Porfirio, you were mentioning you enjoy the action. I enjoy the action too. That definitely helped, you know. So in terms of an entertaining movie, yeah, I think it works on that level. There are exciting action scenes. Um, it's just that with past Captain America movies out there, you can't help but be disappointed from this one. The quality is, it just takes a dip, you know. I have to be honest. This is not in the league of any of the 3 previous Captain America movies. Um, I'll just leave with this. Um, I feel like the end of the movie it gave it that push to make it just enough for me to recommend it. Yeah, the ending was cool. I thought the Cap versus Red Hulk fight was well done, and I did like how Sam Wilson ultimately overcame the Red Hulk, and that's not with brute strength, with any superpowers or technology, but with what? With Sam Wilson's ability at counseling, right? That's how he was introduced to the MCU, as a counselor, right? He knows how to talk to people, and he used that ability to talk down the Red Hulk and cause him to turn back into Ross, right? So that I thought
I
that
have a
was
point on
cool.
that. So I have
Yeah.
a point on that, but I'll I'll
Okay.
I'll, I'll jump into it when you're done.
Okay, we'll go after I give my rating, but we'll get there. So I did like that, and the very end, there were a couple conversations I really liked. So Sam Wilson and Joaquin Torres have a conversation. Joaquin is in the hospital recovering, and he has a very powerful conversation with Cap. And listening to that conversation was really cool because, like we've been saying, the movie shies away from any sort of edginess. Um, but there was a lot of cool, like, uh, superhero representation type conversation in that scene, and how people of color kind of have to work harder and do more. Um, and it really just kind of touches on on the subject, but I really liked it, and it did make me feel like, oh man, it's too bad there wasn't more of that in the movie. But that was a great scene, and I also liked the scene between Anthony Mackie and Harrison Ford at the end of the movie, where again the movie shied away from controversy, but their conversation did kind of allude to real world problems and how the world is divided and we have to work together and look past our differences, right? So some pretty cool stuff at the end, yeah. So for that, I'm gonna give it a mild recommendation, 3 out of 5. And before we wrap up, and before I forget, Ranier, you had something you want to chime in on here?
Yeah. So when when Captain America was talking down the Red Hulk, like calming him down and getting him back to like a calm state, did you guys all notice how the sun was setting?
Oh, no, but now
And
that you
I
mention it.
Ah,
okay, look, I almost thought he was gonna be like, "Hey, big guy, sun's getting real low." Just a fun Hulk call out. I almost thought that's what was gonna happen.
That's a
That's all.
great observation.
I missed that. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? It makes me think too that there is some comedy in this movie, but it's mainly pretty serious, right? So that maybe there's another shortcoming in the movie that it's not that funny. It's not that humorous, right? So something like that, I mean, it would have been out of place for the movie we saw. But if the movie had been more like that and maybe not take itself too seriously, who knows? Maybe it could have been a better experience. All right. A quick heads up. We've been doing comics recommendations typically. So we won't do one for today. But we do intend on doing an all comics episode at some point soon. So stay tuned for that. For now, we can wrap up this episode. Farewell from Henry, Christian, Porfirio, and Ranier.